the exchange debate. I was asked to put together a debate, and my panelists are going to come up very soon. The problem is they're all in this industry, and I wanted to offer a view that is more digital industry-wide. So we're going to have more of a panel, but I will try to be as antagonistic as possible. And I'm not an antagonistic person. So before they come up, just to throw those things out there, we talked about real-time bidding. You know, those of you who know this stuff, you can just close your eyes for a little bit while I just walk through what all these terms are. So real-time bidding, it's a stock market for display advertising. Is it new? For display advertising, but people have been saying that real-time bidding has been on digital for many years in the form of search. Right? So it's not new. It's applying it to display, and with that, there's a whole ecosystem of technologies that enable it and optimize your stock selection. Demand-side platform, that's a technology enabler. DSP, you've been seen it thrown around. Some people, I've heard it, desperate, self-important posers was the term, and desperate salespeople. The word desperate seems to be used a lot, but I'm not sure who's going to be desperate. Trading desk, nothing new. Agencies have been buying media ahead of time and trading media ahead of time. It's nothing new. It's now in real time. Audience buying. It's targeting. Been done many years. So how is it different now? Real time. Data management platforms, DMPs. Dumb, mean people? Was that? Someone brought that up. But it all rolls into programmatic buying, and it's real time. It's buying, in real time, as with all the demand side platform, trading desks, everything in real time, and it's automated. All right, enough of the boring stuff. So I'd like to welcome up my panelists, Michel De Rijk from Xaxis. Please give him a hand. Go on. Woohoo! He's a nice guy, really.
I got a laptop.
And Julian Toll. So you've heard about Xaxis before. Julian's with BrandScreen. They are a technology company platform to provide part of the ecosystem. Next up is Maureen Little from Turn. And I, need to be in the middle of these two because they may jump up and fight each other. Next up is Sammy Hsieh. Sammy's from iClick. They are a real-time performance ad network in North China. So as I get into that, I have a few statements, topics that I want to discuss, and I'm just going to show them up here. But as we go through them one by one, programmatic buying, RTB, will be the be-all and end-all of digital media buying. RTB will cheapen a premium publisher's inventory. Real audience targeting is impossible in a multi-device universe. Brands who can scale should have their own programmatic buying division. Disintermediate and intermediaries. Programmatic buying is only for performance buys and not for branding. So, first one. Will it be the be-all and end-all of digital buying? Michel, you run Xaxis, which, as Sir Martin Sorrell says, is the poor man's bet, and I wish I was that poor. But
thanks for that introduction. And it's not what he said, by the way, but I'll correct you later. You want me to answer the first question, or what's?
What do you think? Is it the end-all, be-all?
Well, the thing is, I see two different questions.
Okay.
And I think here we already start with the biggest mistake, is that programmatic buying and RTB is not the same. So I see two different questions. So which one?
Programmatic buying.
Programmatic buying.
He's supposed to be antagonistic, not you. This is going to be like I don't want to get in between you guys.
No. I know, but go on. He's comScore.
Jesus,
we're
fighting already.
No. I think programmatic buying, RTB. I think RTB, looking at RTB and buying in real time off exchanges, no, it will not be a be-all and end-all, absolutely not. There will be a lot of stuff next to it. If you look at programmatic buying, which is more automated buying, I think we're going into that direction one day. And it's going to be called programmatic buying, I don't know. But I think if we look at how media buying is happening right now, still in a lot of cases, people faxing IOs, signing stuff.
That's still being done.
It's happening right now. Is that happening in a couple of years? I don't think so. No. And I think one of the examples is what we do with GroupM, for example, in Australia, where we just introduced automated IOs. So you cannot be a supplier to GroupM in Australia.
So you're using email?
No, not using email. But it's a system where you as a publisher can log in, your prices are in there, and we do a buy through the system and you confirm it yes or no. I mean, the need of an IO being sent over a fax is absolutely, makes no sense. It's old school.
Julian, I've heard you talk about how much is currently being bought on, on programmatic buying, RTB, automated platforms.
Yeah.
What's the number for Asia Pac, Singapore?
So, it's probably less than, it's well less than 10%. If we look at the United States, which is further ahead than any other market, then real RTB makes up approximately 20% of the display market right now. So it's, it's still, it's sub 5 in a lot of markets. That's not to say it's sub 5 of the audience. So, if you're talking about some form of automation, the process of media buying is becoming automated very fast. The fastest area of growth is in this area of RTB. And what we're finding is that, the amount of budgets going into digital is being driven in large way by the fact that this is a far more efficient and scalable manner of buying. We don't have those old efficiencies to compete with.
I'd like to jump in there on the US side especially.
So I think that there's a couple great things for you guys to think about there. One, in the US, we started this back in, well, a lot of feedback. I don't even need this, I'm pretty damn loud. But what's important is in the US, we started this in 2008, end of 2008. It took a while, right? So,
It just sometimes comes on, sometimes comes off. Go ahead, just keep on talking.
is this better? Okay, great. I can actually use my Grammy desires and sing for you later. But what you want to really look at is the growth that we've seen in the US, what we did from a percentage of spend that went into what I would like to call programmatic buying. I agree. RTB is just the protocol. I don't think we're going to be talking about it. Do you and I talk about how when I pick up my phone, it connects to you? We don't talk about that. We talk about the fact that it executes a call, right? So what we don't want to do is go backwards. But what we saw in Europe was we got to the same percentage in half the time. And my gut is in Asia, we're going to do double that in a fraction of the time because we can learn from our mistakes.
Sammy, China.
I think for China, definitely programmatic media buying is a very new concept. From the data point, we see that there's less than 1%. We see more and more publishers.
1% of how much?
1% of 10 billion advertising spend. So we see that more and more publishers and also advertisers joining the game.
Yeah,
So, Sammy, do you see 1% of, you see 1% of digital is programmatic? That's what you're saying?
I think it's less than 1%
in China.
in China.
I think it's
It's way less than 1%. But I think the problem in China is not about programmatic buying RTB. The problem there, with all due respect, is we're trying to run too fast in China. The thing is that we need to start at the beginning, and the beginning is ad serving. Right. Now, publishers need to start accepting ad serving in China, or else, we can't go into the programmatic or RTB or audience targeting, whatever you want to call it.
But they're happy selling cost per day or cost per duration. They're saying that, that's 20,000 renminbi for that ad for a week.
So Maureen's point is about the speed of adoption in this market, and the speed of adoption, we both worked for companies that was around right at the beginning of this whole programmatic buying system. And it indeed took years and years to get going. I personally, struggled to get this sort of concept going within Australia. Within Australia, it was a long, long time before people sort of, just accepted this as part of the ecosystem. But within China, we're seeing the Tencents, the Sinas, the Baidus, the Taobaos, adopting this with enormous speed. And so we're seeing a speed of growth in this area which is really, amazing.
Well, I want to jump to one of Sorel's saying that you guys are intermediary. It's ecosystem. So will you disintermediate the intermediaries, the other intermediaries? Will people lose jobs? Will account managers, media planners, researchers, research companies lose, are not needed anymore?
Well, I mean, they're absolutely needed, but I think, it's going to be more efficient. With all respect, a media planner right now is spending a lot of time on the execution, which, is eventually not the reason why the person is hired and what they should do. So they should be more on, the development itself and the creativity to really put something down there with all due respect, they're hired for. They're not hired for sending out IOs, checking out IOs, getting creatives in, sending creatives to publishers, etc., etc.
You can just say
Sammy,
yes.
do you have those roles?
Some people will lose their jobs.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Seriously,
Do you have those roles in your
Salespeople
organization?
on the publisher side.
why?
Yes, but I see that advertisers, they start to realize the ROI importance. So that's why they will ask us to deliver like some KPIs. Let's say for example like CPC or maximize like CPA.
Maureen, did you have something?
Well, let's stop worrying a little bit less about who loses their job and figure out, in the auto manufacturing, do you think that they would have stuck to the old tradition if it made the most sense? Let's worry about, I liked what Martin Sorrell said about growing the overall pie. I want to grow the pie, right? I want us to grow the pie in digital. I want us to make it easier to spend worldwide across multiple mediums for the advertiser. So, no offense, I don't really give a shit if people lose their jobs. If they were inefficient at them in the first place or it didn't help the brand get the message they wanted across, let's worry about fixing what we've done to ourselves and making ad tech really confusing. Sorry. The American is in the room.
How many publishers are there in the room? One, two. Come, there's more. Anyway, will this whole thing cheapen
No,
premium advertising?
this one makes me physically angry because I used to be the old school media buyer. I got on the phone, I sent in Excel spreadsheets. Guess what I did? I negotiated the crap out of you to make sure that I could make the margin that I needed for my company and hit the goals for my advertiser. Okay? So
Michel,
I devalued it.
Driving down the cost in your discussions from a...
No, let's start at the beginning. Who defines that a publisher is premium? Isn't it up to the advertiser to define if a publisher is premium and why that publisher is premium? I think that's a starting point. I think currently there are premium, so-called themselves premium publishers, which a portion of them their prices will go down. It's not a race to the bottom. In a centralized marketplace, you will get the money which you sort of earn. And if you have the premium quality of your inventory, you got the premium ad spots, and you have the premium audiences, we from an agency perspective, we're willing to pay a premium price for it.
Yeah.
And last thing I want to say is that I got examples enough in the US, for example, where we're currently paying more to a premium publisher than his rate card is, because we see that this specific the content where the ad is being placed, seriously, the content where it's being placed, as well the position where it's being placed, but especially the audience which we can reach at that position is worth more than the CPM which they're charging for.
Sure. The economic proposition is clearly in favor of getting buyers together that are prepared to pay more for something with sellers that have something valuable. And there's something which is a little bit of a standard to say, but we talk about remnant inventory, but you don't really have remnant audience, right? And if you're buying audience, if you know something about that audience that says to you, I want that audience, and you can show that. Grant had this wonderful example, right, with the petrol and the degree, the amount of information which is possible. A fraction of the knowledge that you have about that individual user contribute a lot to the value that you're prepared to pay for that user as an advertiser.
So say a publisher embraces this. Should they set up their own exchange like Facebook?
Well, yeah,
I think they have to test it out. I think they have to try it out. And I guess, some stats that I have is, yes, when we first started this and there was a lot more supply than demand, the prices were lower. So US dollars, we're talking about 50 cents and below. But now, on average, it's $2 to $7 because there are ways to get access to audiences that you care the most about. So again, you have to test it out. You have to have a strategy that makes sense as a publisher. You have to understand what your channel conflict is, what types of ad creatives you're open to, and you need to ask a lot of questions. But I think that to not try this out, you will lose out, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, on dollars. If an agency team like Xaxis is looking for a specific audience for Nike based on a really specific online targeted goal, they're going to use programmatic buying. It's more effective for them. You don't want to lose out on those dollars.
Sammy, what are the publishers in China thinking?
I think we see that now the unsold or the remnant inventory become more like available to our advertisers, and our advertisers are willing to pay more, for those inventory right now.
So there's first sticking in the remnant, where they're keeping
Because
the
Joe, sorry, can I?
increasing.
I mean, it's a great story, with all due respect, but you're a performance network, right? And what I see, we were talking about RTB here in general, but what I see, how 95% of the companies currently using RTB, buying off exchanges, with all due respect, is getting cheap reach. That's how it's being used right now.
Sure.
So it's a starting point. Again, the starting point is wrong. This is not about RTB. RTB, I mean, ask any exchange, and probably and Maureen as well, I think 95% of all the buys you're doing right now is for performance clients. Now, I think that's the biggest mistake. There's a huge branding opportunity.
It's a massive shift. Yes,
It
for
is.
the first 2 years, absolutely, but right now it's 50-50.
Yeah, well, in Asia it's 98%.
Exactly, fair enough.
96.
Okay, move on. We have 8 minutes left, apparently.
Russia.
Go.
Yeah, real audience targeting is impossible in a multi-device universe. It's, everyone's got phones, tablets, phablets.
No. Next.
No. Okay, good. It's not possible, he says.
No, we do it.
No, of course it's possible. Sure. It's beginning. It's very beginning. I mean,
Early
there
stages.
is an enormous importance that we all, as an industry, have to place on the degree to which consumers allow themselves to be tracked. That permission forms an enormous part of this whole piece. But of course, understanding who we are talking to in a way which a person has allowed, and that we do that across multiple devices and multiple locations, is exactly what this is all about. In the end, let's take out the technology. It's about giving people relevant messages at the right time, one at a time, one person at a time. That's what it's about.
I really hope we all pay attention to this one. You don't want this to be impossible, everybody in the room, because if this is impossible, there'll only be a handful of companies who can offer cross-channel advertising, and that's Google and Facebook. So we're all incented to have multiple places for your ads to run, so you should care about this.
And WPP.
Yeah.
I'm fine with these three, by the way. So that's the rest not be able to do it.
And those companies use the single sign-on concept, so they can get the data, from different devices, and then make use of those data to do real-time targeting.
Cool. All right, 6 minutes. All right. Went through the publishers. Brands. How many brands are there in the room?
One.
Okay. Well, brands who can scale should have their own programmatic buying division to do it themselves. Disintermediate completely all the intermediaries. Just go straight from the advertiser to the publisher. Will that happen? Can it happen?
It already happens with a few advertisers who made that move, or in the US or globally. I mean, I think Kellogg's is one of the most known ones, Kimberly-Clark as well. It doesn't matter who operates the business. If that's happening on the advertiser side, or happening on the agency side, or with an external third party, DSP like Turn or what's your company name again? BrandScreen. With BrandScreen. That's not relevant. I think it's all about the advertiser who's willing to understand what's happening here, and is willing and does understand that this is groundbreaking. This gives you a lot more opportunities as an advertiser. But if you're looking at general brands, I don't think they're big enough to set it up themselves and really get all the benefits out of it.
I think this is a really important thing. You have to understand what you have as staffing and skills at your brand, right? What we've seen in the US and some parts of Europe is that if they brought search in-house and they have an analytics department, they often test this out. Now, we've seen amazing presentations from Kimberly-Clark from you know, Coca-Cola, you're not going to get rid of your ad agency. What they bring to you is offline research and studies and creative things that a technology company like a Turn is simply not going to bring to you. But I don't think that we have to worry as much about it. Now, I also think that why do companies use Accenture or McKinsey or their agency? If they don't have the skill set to handle programmatic buying and media planning using data, what they have to go and do is ask their agency if they're skilled to do it for them.
Yeah, I'd love to, I want to comment on that, if that's all right. I mean, if you look at from the advertiser's perspective, if you are spending 3% of your advertising budget on digital, what happens in that 3% really doesn't move your needle, right? It doesn't affect your business. It's not life or death. You spend 20 or 30% on digital, and it's life or death. And you really care about who has access to that audience. You care about that audience. That's the advertiser's audience. Now, there are players like Xaxis, there are technologies like BrandScreen and Turn, there are suppliers. Well, let me just summarize. So the point is, it matters a lot. It matters, and it should matter to the advertiser. The security, the ownership, and the control of that data should matter.
Well, that's what I want to get to, right?
You then talk about the partners that can bring that.
Data, right? So this is the whole track here is about data. Do they need their own DMP? Should they have their own data? Do they need to set their own DMPs?
Yes, advertisers need to own, control, they need to protect, they need to curate. It's their data. And one of the cornerstones of the way that Xaxis and BrandScreen and others operate is that we respect the ownership and, in fact, enhance that ownership and control and transparency of that data for those customers.
So
we
the
do
brands
it,
in the US, are they setting up their own
agencies.
DMPs?
Yes, so actually I want to separate and be very clear here. A brand should own their data strategy completely.
Yep.
I actually feel as though they partner with their agency and they pass certain select data assets over to their agency for use in media planning and execution and maybe even research. But you have to understand exactly what you want to do with your data, and more importantly, what you've asked your consumers for you to have the rights to do. If you haven't done those things, first and foremost, don't even start messing with your data and use it in advertising. You should have your own internal data strategy. You should bring in companies to help advise you, and you should know where it's stored, how it's stored, who has access to it, and you should have learning systems to make sure you can monitor it.
Sammy, are they even thinking about this in North Asia?
Some advertisers in China even integrate some of the internal CRM data with our system working with us. I think it's not about setting up like an internal department, but more like a change agent internally to drive the organization move towards the programmatic media buying.
Yeah. All right, last one. Programmatic buying is only for performance buys and not branding, right? It's instant. You're going in there, you're making quick purchases, or you put algorithms together. Is that true? Michelle?
That's an easy one.
That just makes
I think I
it
already
angry.
answered the
That
question.
just-
It's unfortunately it's being used that way so far. And if I look from a Xaxis perspective, obviously we do performance campaigns as well. I mean, we don't skip them, obviously. But Xaxis is about reaching audiences at scale using technology and data. And eventually, I think the whole online advertising, and especially branding side, needs to go back to what an advertiser truly wants, and that's reach audiences at scale. And that means, you know, it's not about performance, it's about your branding dollars also putting into programmatic buying. I think the most important thing we all forget about programmatic buying, it's not about efficiency, what a lot of maybe other agency groups or a lot of advertisers see. It's about creating the capability of reaching single user profiles. To be able to target single specific users. I think that's the most critical thing about programmatic buying, which a lot of people forget in general.
I'm going to switch to Sammy because he's all about the performance buys.
I think some of the concerns from the branding customers, they're concerned about the targetability, the efficiency, and also the brand safety. I think all three concerns can be addressed by the programmatic buying right now.
Okay. So can I just make a comment? So just because this seems complex and because it involves big data and because there's a lot of moving parts doesn't mean the basics don't apply. The funnel still applies. A consumer, whether you've done them in a big lump of a segment or whether it's an individual user profile that Michelle just mentioned, the funnel still applies. Human behavior, creativity matters, storytelling matters, you know, the fact that devices are involved and a lot of number crunching is involved, the basics still matter. And of course,
you
that
brought
means
up
that
creativity, which is one of the questions I had, right? So in this real-time world of ads going out, how creative, will creativity diminish?
I think
No,
we're
not at
also
all.
limiting it
It's
to
enhanced.
display, though, right?
Yeah.
Again, this is a form, a simple new form of buying media. You can do it with video. True pre-roll video can be done in this manner. You can buy your audience that way. You can buy audience on Facebook through FBX. You can also enhance through a programmatic method your buys across Facebook. So I don't believe this is just for performance. I just think that's where it started because it was easier to do the math and look at the cost efficiencies.
Last question, I'm over time already apparently. Are we heading into a world with more ads, less ads, different ads?
Relevant ads.
yeah, more relevant.
Let's hope less.
More relevant, fewer, more relevant, and with a far greater say from consumers, from individuals, from people in what they see and consume. The world of choice, you may choose to have advertising and not pay for services. You may say, I want to opt into this stream and not pay for a video or whatever it is, but a lot more control, a lot more choice than we have, I think, is what lies ahead. And part of that is going to be advertising. And
Michel?
you'll be able to control it.
Fewer ads?
Fewer ads. More relevant ads. I think that's the most important thing.
More ads
I think
from...
we do a couple things. I think we actually change and hopefully improve the ads, especially on mobile devices. I also think that we cull through some of the bad inventory. I want true content. I mean, I have some great stats about how it's not just about the audience and that perfect user. That perfect user on a better piece of content has a much higher yield long-term for that advertiser. So I also hope that it just kind of devalues some of the long tail in publishing that actually makes digital look like a bad place to serve your ads.
Sammy, any last words?
Definitely there will be more relevant ads.
More relevant ads. So more relevant ads, but fewer ads in general. All right, thank you very much. I'm a bit over time, and please give the panel a hand.
Thank you very much indeed.